All right, so just as a general point of something that I want to highlight as we are getting into this is that the reason that we are sharing this information isn't because you are all going to have to be able to know how to do these things start to finish. Really, there's going to be a staff member assigned to each case, and the staff member is going to be handling the bulk of the technology pieces. So they are going to be scheduling the sessions, sending out the Zoom links. Hopefully they do better than I did this go around. They're going to be sending out the documents that need to be signed and really taking care of all of the hosting features that go into a session. The reason that we're bringing all of this up to you is because we are trying to offer people as normal of a process as we can in a situation like this. And so by having mediators who are aware that consents are going to be signed electronically, and there's the ability to draft and work on an agreement with the participants as part of the call, and that there are electronic signatures that can be obtained in essentially real time. That is us bringing everyone up to speed and really taking one step closer to offering what we deem to be a normal mediation. Okay. So, tech tools, consents. We are going to be using an electronic platform. So whether it's DocuSign or eSign Genie or HelloSign. Right now we've been using DocuSign, but there is a lot of change happening all the time with this. So again, staff is going to be responsible for making sure that that information is sent out to folks and that we receive it back prior to the mediation. And if electronic signatures just aren't an option, what that means is that we will walk through obtaining these signatures in a different way. So whether it's mailing it out, whether it's a verbal consent, that's something that the person who is managing your case is going to be on top of. So they'll let you know if the electronic signature hasn't been obtained. Okay. This is an example of what the parties would receive if we sent them something from DocuSign. So as you can see, the Child and Family Services CRJ logo is up there on the top. The body of the message says that we need people to review and then sign the attached document. If they have any questions about content, they can call us. If they have any questions about the actual signature process, they can also call us. This is an example of what it would look like when they do open up that document. This is on the left side, like the bottom portion of the consent that we would have people signing. By clicking on the yellow box where it says signature, there's a few different options that are going to pop up. There's the option of typing your name and initials, and then you can go through a list of fonts to look for one that you think is suitable for your signature. And then you can adopt and sign that way. Or you actually have the option to draw your signature, so you can do that with a touch screen in your finger, or you can do it with a mouse. And then by hitting adopt and sign, that's essentially a party acknowledging that they are adopting this as their signature for the purpose of this document. Okay, so there's also the virtual addendum that is going to be added. And I want to highlight this because this is something that I know is going to raise a lot of questions, and it's something that's changing pretty much every day. We are actually currently working on the addendum that we are going to include for our services. Actually, after I get out of this call, I have a working group that I'm part of, and we're really trying to tinker with that language so that it says exactly what we need it to say. But the things that are going to be covered really are confidentiality. So confidentiality with respect to third parties. So that means, is there somebody else in the room that can hear or see this conversation? How are we going to go about addressing that? Confidentiality with respect to recording, making sure that people aren't recording sessions and making sure that there aren't screenshots, things like that. And then liability. So liability of the independent platforms that we're using. So DocuSign, Zoom, DoxyMe, all of those different things. And I know that this is going to raise a lot of questions because it makes sense that it should. So what we are going to do is offer another session as soon as we have that language settled on, because we're going to talk about what exactly it says, what that means for us and how we can incorporate it into our opening statements so that parties are fully informed. Something that I do want to highlight there is that for a lot of the cases that we offer, the staff members are going to be talking to parties beforehand, so the consent and the opening statement won't be the first times that people are actually seeing these things. So if anybody has questions, I will certainly do my best to field those questions and answer them to the best of my ability, but more answers are coming shortly. Okay. So a feature that we want to offer parties is the ability to caucus. Again, we want to offer that close to normal as possible process. And so by doing this, mediators can call caucuses, parties can call caucuses, attorneys can call caucuses. And this is something that the host can do either beforehand or during the session. So to do it beforehand, they would actually set the breakout rooms and pre-assign people where they're supposed to go. Or they can do it during the session, and they do this by utilizing the breakout feature or the breakout room feature on the feature center of the call screen. And you can do that. It'll actually pop up with how many participants there are. You can select how many rooms you want people to be in, and then you can automatically or manually separate the folks into those rooms. With respect to mediation, we strongly suggest that you do it manually, because otherwise you're going to get a random scramble of where parties are, where attorneys are, where mediators are, where when you do it manually, it's going to be, one party, their attorney, one party, their attorney, separate rooms, and then the mediators can actually toggle back and forth between those two rooms. So as you can see, I call on my friends and family to join me when I'm trying to put together these Zoom tutorials because I need bodies and names. But the hosts can actually go back and forth between the rooms. So instead of where we're used to, where we send people out to the waiting room and then we have them switch places, everybody stays put and we actually just hop back and forth depending on what stage we're at. Something else that should be noted is that if parties want to consult their attorneys privately, you can send them to their own breakout room. The mediators can be in their own breakout room. And then a message on the bottom corner saying broadcast a message to all. Say you want to wrap it up in 5 minutes, you can let them know we'll be reconvening in 5 minutes. You send that message out and then the session would end at that 5-minute mark. So we are going to try it. So I'm going to stop my share for a moment. Okay. All right. I also see a note from Dr. Kent here saying that people might not know how to unmute yourselves. Again, find that microphone button if you want to unmute yourself. Press it, it'll say unmute, or you can hold the space bar down if you just have a quick comment. So I'm going to sort you guys out into breakout rooms. There's 40 people on the call, so we're going to do 4 rooms of 10. It's going to be randomly done because I don't want to separate 40 names right now. But what's going to happen is you are all going to be in those rooms, and I'm going to take a little bit of time going from one room to the next, just so you can see how the mediator can hop from room to room. Bear with me here. All right, so you're going to get a message saying to go to your breakout room. So as soon as you get that message, go ahead and say yes. How's everybody doing? All right, so you can see me in this breakout room. We've got 4 people in here. We're supposed to have a handful more. But I can highlight with you folks that, so I'm recording this session. So this is actually recording just the breakout rooms that I'm in. Okay, so it doesn't record the other ones. Hi there, how we doing?
Here she is.
Yep, so I started over in the first breakout room and then I made it over to the second one here. Was everybody able to, just follow that link right to the room?
Yep.
Right. Now, it's only the host that has that capability. Is that correct?
So the host has the capability, are you speaking to which capability?
Of setting up the breakout rooms?
I believe so. It's hard to say with some of these features because I have not participated as someone did that. But my understanding is that the host can actually make those determinations prior in their settings, so they can really limit what people have the ability to do outside of themselves.
So I tried yesterday, and there was a host, and it was Krista Gottlieb. Actually, we were just experimenting with this, and I usually have the breakout room set up. I mean, at least the option at the bottom, and you just have to program your Zoom so that every time you open Zoom and you're the host, it automatically you'll see four little squares in the bottom, right, Amy?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but anyway, she was the host, and then we had somebody else on, and we said, let's see if we can, you can let me be the host, and then I can set up the breakout rooms. But mine wouldn't work. So it's only the original host, even though she included me as the host.
Got it. The other feature to note is that, so I, as the host, can toggle back and forth between the rooms. And then if I have a co-mediator, I can actually send them from room to room with me. So the transition takes a minute or two, but you have the ability to move people where you need to move them. So just for the sake of time, I'm being called back to room 1, so I'm going to pop over there, and then I got to visit the other 2 rooms. So chat amongst yourselves, and we'll bring you all back together in a minute.
Yeah, they have some state forest up there. Very nice.
Somebody
Nice trails.
had asked me to join this room again, but I'm not sure who. But that's okay.
Oh.
All right.
How do we ask?
There's an option in the breakout rooms where you can request help.
Oh, there it is.
All right. I'm going to hop over to room 3. I'll be back.
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Amy.
Everybody get into the room okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So as you can see, I was able to shift from one to the other. I think that we have some people who weren't able to follow the prompts, so we might have some of those messages when we come back together. But a message just goes out and people click yes, brings them back to the room. Something that I do want to highlight is that right now I'm recording this session. If I'm not in this room, it's not being recorded, unless there's someone in the room who has hosting capabilities who can schedule the session themselves and record the session themselves. Yes.
Can I ask a question, Amy? So Suzanne just sent a message, a chat message, and maybe it was her intent to send it to everyone. I guess my question is, did that go to everyone or just everybody in the group?
When did she send it?
That was my question too, Katie.
So
Yes.
I'm not seeing it in my general chat. So it might have just gone to the group, and that's a good question. And we'll address it when we all come back together. I'm going to pop over to room 4. Bear with me here. Hi there. How we doing,
Amy?
I don't know where everybody else is in these sessions right now, but all right. I'm gonna go back.
Ellen,
Pardon?
we lost one out of here.
Ellen had another.
I guess Sharon was in here too, and she's gone too. So I don't know.
All right. Well, I'm gonna close all the rooms. We're gonna come all back together. Okay. All right.
Okay, so it looks like everyone's coming back to the main here.
Sorry, everyone. I'm going to have to head out. Thank you, Amy.
Bye, Katie.
Well, Katie.
Is this the main or is this a breakout?
I think this is the main.
Yeah.
I concur. I think it's the main point.
Okay, so was everybody able to follow the prompts to take them to a room? Because I sent out an invitation to a handful of people, but I didn't see them come into the room. So I'm curious what that was like for everybody.
Well, Amy, I got a prompt and followed the prompt. I ended up in breakout room 2. Sat around there for a few minutes with nothing happening, and then returned to the main session or something like that.
Okay. Were you in the room with anybody else?
I was not. I was no, not that I could detect.
Okay.
I was in breakout room 1 with Gina, and it was just the 2 of us.
Okay.
And we sat patiently and then got a notice that in 59 seconds we'd go back to the main room, and that's what happened.
Oh, I didn't get a notice.
Okay. All right. So,
Yeah, I was in the room by myself. I got the prompt, and then I left that room, and I ended up in a room with 5 other people. I think, and that same thing happened to them. And then I think John was one of them. And then we joined the group here.
okay.
Amy?
Yes.
I
We all
just got,
paid extra for our own room.
Amy, I just got back in. I couldn't, when I followed the prompt, it just kept telling me to wait and wait. And I finally went back to the original email and let myself back in. How long are we supposed to wait to get back into the main group?
So when the host ends the breakout rooms, it'll send a message saying that in 60 seconds the session is going to end, like the breakout session. And you either have the option to just hop right back to the main screen, or you can wait for that timer to run out. I can say that I completely am not sure why some of you ended up in the rooms and some of you didn't. This is still new for us. You know, we're working on figuring it out. Ideally, if there is a mediation session, there won't be 40 participants that need to be assigned rooms. It's something that can be done with a little bit more purpose, and issues can be addressed on a more, you know, important level here.
Liz Kent and I were in breakout room 1 also, and we didn't see anyone else. Perhaps we were facing in the wrong direction.
That was a good one. All right, so clearly breakout rooms are still something that I'm learning how to navigate. I appreciate all of your patience, as this is a learning experience, and if we can all figure it out together, we can offer the best process possible for our parties. Obviously, I'm going to do some more research on it so that I can have some answers for you. But it looks like we are all generally back together here. There isn't anybody in the waiting room. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the slideshow for you. Give me one moment. Okay, so another feature that's available is screen sharing, which is what we're doing right now. But screen sharing can be a really useful tool when you are writing an agreement, or if you're using a planning calendar. There's also the whiteboard feature, so you can create a virtual flip chart, and we'll walk through all of those in a moment. Screen sharing is found on the bottom center of your call screen. I have it circled in the center of the lower portion of the screen there, that green button. The host can actually disable people's abilities to share their screen so they can't overrun it. If it's more of a collaborative thing, you can also allow people to share their screens. With respect to mediations, we would probably not allow people to share their screens, just so that we can work on our tools and our agreements and things like that. And then something that I want to note is that this tool can be used both during caucus and during the mediation session. And the reason that I mention the caucus is because if you are in the process of drafting an agreement, a lot of the times we would send the parties out to the waiting room, or we would have them go on a walk or do something along those lines while we're drafting the agreement. Instead, we can send them to their breakout rooms. The co-mediators can stay in one room together, and the screen can be shared, and you can collaboratively work on a document. So We're gonna see it again. There are all your lovely faces. Okay. So I'm gonna pull up a planning calendar first. So as you can see, I started to pre-fill this out. This is something that I use during custody visitation cases a lot. Sometimes people really need that visual in order to understand what the schedule is going to look like, something like that. So this is a useful tool with respect to that. We're going to take a look at the whiteboard. So you have this whiteboard here. You can use it as a virtual flip chart. So things that people typically talk about, communication. We can talk about the issue with the driveway, noise, things like that. So you can use it as if it were that flip chart. I'm not sure where that actually pops up on my screen. Where is it that you guys see that on my screen? Or is it just your full screen?
It's certainly my full screen.
Your
My
full
full
screen? Okay. What about anybody who's on a computer?
Just the center top.
Okay.
Full screen.
Okay.
Yeah, full screen.
Okay. Do you see little pictures still? Like the tiles of people talking?
Yes.
No.
On
No.
the side.
Okay.
Well, I shrunk those so that I could see the full screen.
Okay. All right.
I see the little squares.
Okay.
I just see a little picture in the bottom, one person at a time.
Okay. So it's interesting how on device by device it changes. So you do want to be mindful of that. So if you are using any of these tools, you want to check in with your parties and make sure that you know, they can see it, they can see you if you're trying to still have that face-to-face style communication. And then I will show you one more here, just an agreement. Share that. So if you are in that, that breakout room and you and your co-mediator are drafting an agreement, you can go ahead and work on it together. So if there's language around some of these things, and I know that this is another custody visitation document, but we have settlement agreement. I put Beyonce and Jay-Z as parties in it. Parties agree that Jay-Z is going to purchase a new window from Home Depot, something along those lines. So you can work on it together. Having the conversation with your parties about what that agreement right is going to look like. So is it something that you are all going to do together? Is it something that if you want to send them to the breakout rooms and then you and your co-mediator work on it, you can do it that way? Being mindful of how long it normally takes you to draft an agreement. Is this something that you want to have everybody hang up and then reconvene in a half hour or something along those lines? Figuring out what process is going to work best for you. My thought around this initially is that we're going to want people to stay in their breakout rooms, giving them an expectation of time. So, you know, we can reconvene from the breakout rooms in 15 minutes. So that means if you want to turn your mic off, turn your camera off, go take a break, go for a walk, go to the bathroom, whatever, come back in 15 minutes and we will review the agreement. Everybody doing okay so far? All right, we're going to go back to this presentation for just a couple more slides here. Okay, so signing an agreement. Once the parties are brought back together and the agreement has been reviewed and approved by everybody, there's the ability to send it out for electronic signatures. So in order to do this, there needs to be an email address that people can access. This is something, again, that the staff member who's coordinating the case will have information on, and they'll be responsible for sending this out. And this is something that can be done in real time. So if you want to send the email out while you're on the call and stay on the call until everybody has signed it and it's been received back by the mediators, that can be the ending of your session. If you want to send it out for attorney review first, you can do that as well. And there's actually a signing order that can be set. So if you need mom's attorney to sign the agreement before she signs it, you know, the server actually won't let mom sign it until the attorney has signed it. Okay. And then just finally, client feedback forms. This is something that we are going to be sending out to everyone who participates. So you no longer have to chase people down the hallway or open your file and say, shoot, I forgot to give them this. This is something that they're going to send. So as long as mediators are mindful that it's going to be sent at the end of the session, letting them know that it's voluntary, but we appreciate any sort of input and feedback that they have. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing here. Okay. So how are we doing? Does anybody have?
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
You said that the parties can sign the agreement, but you're not looking to have the signatures notarized?
So the notary process is something that we actually do have an electronic process for. With respect to that agreement, there would actually be a notary page. It's not reflected there, but if the agreement requires it to be notarized, we certainly have the ability to do that.
And what if the mediator is not a notary?
So there's going to be a staff member on pretty much every call at this point in time, mostly
staff
for
member's a notary?
Yep. So we, if not a notary, they'll make sure that there's someone on the call who is. We'll certainly account for that. That's a good question.
Amy, I have a question about assumption. I guess we're assuming that the participants have a certain technical capability.
Right.
Can you speak to that? What's when you set up the mediations, for example, do you have to negotiate with potential participants as to what they can do?
Yeah, so we are offering people the option to have some sort of walkthrough with a staff member prior to the session, because we understand that this is a new service for a lot of people and there is a lot of discomfort with something that you're not familiar with. So we will happily have, you know, a walkthrough so they are able to have the platform ready to go. They're able to mute and unmute themselves. They can feel a little bit more comfortable. And we really are gauging a lot of these things during the intake calls that we're doing for a handful of the programs anyways.
Amy, how are you going to ensure that there is confidentiality? I'm thinking in terms of the parties being at home, sitting in their kitchen, and other people in the household just hanging around, not necessarily because they want to be listening, but because it's a small house and kids are running around and somebody has to keep an eye on the kids and all those kinds of practical concerns.
Yeah, and that's a really valid concern that we're trying to adapt to right now. We are going to do our best to ensure that parties understand that the expectation is that they are in a room by themselves. There's no one else that can see or hear this conversation. We're going to go through that with our opening statement, with the consent to mediate that they're going to be signing, with that virtual addendum. But at the end of the day, it's the same as if someone walks in with a tape recorder in their pocket. We are going to do our due diligence and let them know that this is the expectation, but there are some people who are going to find their way around that if they really, really want to.
So would you stop a mediation if you didn't think it was confidential?
Yeah, so I mean, if there's issues with quality of the process, the mediator has the ability to use that judgment. The staff member will be on the call to use that judgment to address some of those concerns. If you are noticing that there's someone in the background, you can certainly call that out and ask who that person is. You know, trying to be transparent about what the process is and what the limitations are. I think that it would be on a case-by-case call, though.
Amy, how are you pulling up the documents and putting them on the screen, like the that you just had? I'm kind of lost on that.
Okay, so certainly. So in the, if you all kind of wiggle your mouses there is a green button that says screen share at the bottom, like bottom center next to your chat. For the sake of this meeting, you are actually not able to share your screens just because this was more of a presentation. But what you would be doing if you were the one sharing your screen, you would click that button and then it would give you a handful of options to pick from. It could be your desktop, it can be your web browsers, it can be a presentation, and it can be a document, anything along those lines. But for reasons like that, you're going to want to make sure that any extra web browsers are closed. Make sure your desktop is cleaned up if you are doing the screen sharing, things like that. And if anybody wants to work on sharing their screen, we can certainly do that. So just so you can test the feature yourself. But with respect to the mediation sessions that we would be offering, staff is going to have those templates and those tools pulled up, and they'll be able to pull it up, and the mediator can access it.
So the mediator will be doing the typing, not the host.
No, you know what, the host would have to be doing it. So there's things that can be set, authorities that can be set. If the co-mediator has a Zoom account, they can be a co-host, things like that. Certain authorities can be given. Right now, the way that we're approaching it is that staff is going to be the one with all of those technical responsibilities, just while the troubleshooting phase is still going on. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right, well, truthfully, that is the bulk of the information that I had for you today. Again, this wasn't meant to give you things that you're suddenly not going to know how to do. This is more so that you are aware that these are features that we can utilize during a session, because these are tools that are helpful. If you ask your co-mediator to pull up a planning calendar, or you know that you can call a caucus, and that's something that's pretty quick and easy to do, that's going to make the mediation process feel as normal as possible, and it's going to help some of these parties out. Yes.
So could we either have access to the video or the PowerPoint just as a reference?
Yep. So I'm going to try and trim down this video because you guys all sat silently and so patiently for the first 15 minutes while I was trying to get people into the session. But we are looking to set up some sort of forum where we can put the videos and materials and things like that that you can access, because right now they are too large to attach to emails, but I can certainly circulate the presentations in the meantime.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we can also use this time if anybody has questions that were about things that we didn't necessarily address today, but they've been on your mind. We can address those while we're all together.
Amy, will we be submitting the vouchers in the same way?
Yeah, so I'm gonna let Karen answer that one. I see her shaking her head.
For mediators on the Erie County Family Court roster, if those are cases that are referred to us through that program, the vouchers will happen the same way. I'll make sure everybody has a blank copy of the voucher. It can be filled in pen and scanned, or I think it's a fillable document. So you could fill it, save it, and send it, and then just reuse it. So yeah, that will go through the exact same process as we've always done.
Will we have the same kind of paperwork to complete after the mediation as well as to outcome?
It may be modified a little bit just because of kind of what we're moving through right now. But again, you won't be by yourself on any of these. So probably you'll have, I'll be on with you, Amy might be on with you, Amber might be on with you. Really our hope is that we do all the heavy lifting of the process, all those tasks that might be associated with doing this in a different way. And then we'll be able to kind of maybe step even a little bit more into the background as the mediation session is moving forward.
Well, I'm sure as time goes on and people are more comfortable, things will change.
I think so too. I think so too.
I'm going to highlight something that was sent to me in the chat. Someone was asking whether we could have permission to record the sessions. That was done with purpose. At this point in time, the only person that can record the session for this is the host, as it would be for a mediator. So we really want to reduce the ability for people to have recordings. Again, what will be addressed in that upcoming session about the virtual addendum is, how are we going to actually navigate that in real time?
Amy?
Hi, Steve.
Hi. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. One is that it's hard, as much as we say that they can't record a Zoom session, there are ways that people, if they wanted to record, what's going on, they could have their phone over here on a video, or they could do it through their computer. So all we can do, I guess, is say in the agreement that everyone agrees that this is absolutely not to be recorded in any fashion, audio or video, I would think. And that's whether that would be said in the opening statement as well. So that's one point I just wanted to make. Another one was that when it comes to the confidentiality and when you're caucusing and you have two parties in the same home, I know we said that third parties, you don't want them hearing about what the parties are talking about. But even if two people are in the same home who are disputants and you are going to caucus, so also to make it so that it's clear, are you each going to be in a room that the other one can't hear you? Just trying to do the best you can with that.
That's a really good point, because we are going to have some parties who are under the same roof. It's not necessarily people who are, neighbors or disputing parties in different homes. So that is something that will have to be addressed as well. Thanks, Steve.
And then I just wanted to say one other thing, that sometimes, if you didn't realize it already, you can arrange these little squares with our faces in it so that it's just one row, and say you have just a few disputants, you can grab that row and then manipulate it. Say you're using a chart, like using the share screen, and these pictures are in your way. You can just click and then drag it to the side. You also can click and drag it all the way up to the top so that it's horizontal. And the advantage of that is when you look at the screen, you think that you're looking the person in the eye because their picture is down there, but you're really not. It doesn't look like you're looking in the eye. Actually, if you look up at the little camera, which is on the top of your screen, you're looking them in the eye more. At least it looks that way. So what I've been trying to do is I grab the tiles and I drag them so that it's horizontal strip on the top so that I'm looking at them. And it looks like I'm looking more, there's more eye contact for what it's worth.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting.
That is a good point. And that's something we were talking a little bit about last time with, are you looking at the camera so it looks like you're maintaining eye contact, or are you trying to look at the parties so you can read their body language? These are interesting times. We are trying to make do with what we've got going on right now, and I think that you're going to find benefits to both versions. And there will be times where you need to look at the camera to make people feel more engaged, and you need the benefit of being able to read that body language. Any other questions from folks? Okay. All right. Well, I do apologize. Oh, go ahead, Sue.
Oh, I wondered, for those of us who've never done anything this way, would you ever set up some mock mediations? Using some of the examples and making us feel more familiar using these techniques before we actually are with nervous people?
Definitely.
Just people or three people?
Yeah. So we are looking at a couple of different things for mediator engagement, and it's spanning everywhere from learning modules to workshops to walkthrough mediations. There is also the ability to ask staff for a one-on-one session. So if anybody wants to work on some of these in more of a low pressure situation, you can certainly ask. We'll schedule a half-hour session with you and we can try out some of those features. We've got a handful of people who are pretty up to speed with it and ready to help everybody out. But there are services coming. Okay. Anybody else for questions? Okay. Well, I appreciate your time this morning or this afternoon. I apologize for the struggle getting on. For anybody who missed the beginning, I'm going to try and figure out how to put this onto some sort of website that you guys can access. So please be expecting that information in a bit. I can circulate the PowerPoint from this week and last week. And if anybody does want to utilize some of the time with the staff to work out some of these features, or if they have other questions that have come up, certainly happy to have these little working groups with you.
Thank you, Amy. It was
Thank
very
you,
helpful.
Amy.
Thank you.
Amy.
So long.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Bye, everybody.